Hi there, and welcome to the HR Podcast. This is Linda Misegadis
and Cyndi Manuel, and we'll be your co-hosts. After spending years working in and with HR, we thought, why not start a podcast to support the important HR community? We believe the way things have always been done isn't necessarily what's going to work in the future. So we're diving into topics that support HR and working women as they navigate the future of work. We're talking about professional growth and also how we can support each other as human beings.
We can't wait to bring you insights from HR experts, thought leaders, and inspiring women who are making a real difference in their organization and communities. They'll share their journeys and tips on balancing work and life in a better way. We're excited to learn alongside you and hope you'll pick up some great takeaways from tips and tricks to worksheets that you can actually use in your daily life. So grab your favorite beverage
or lace up your walking shoes and join us for the HR Her Resources podcast.
Cyndi, it's so good to see you.
You too. It's always good to see you.
It's always good to see you too. I love doing this with you. It has meant so much. It's been so much fun, and I'm so excited to be back in the studio again.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm having more fun than I thought I was going to.
It's a little daunting
nervous.
at first, right? You
Yes.
think, "Oh my goodness, can I really do this?" And
do
you
we
realize
have enough
it's just
to talk about?
Oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
especially in human resources and just really what's going on in the world today. There's just so much happening, and so it's like such an exciting time, and so much happening in business and the work environment and the shifts and everything. And so, definitely never at a loss to of things to talk about. That's for sure. So
I would agree.
No, I'm really glad to be talking about this time, kind of as we're rolling into our third episode now. I mean, is that crazy or what? Is to really kind of jump in. We talked about like the history. So like, where did HR come from? We talked a little bit about where HR is going, which is kind of that strategy and becoming the strategic business partner. But, we thought this time, let's talk a little bit more about like, how do you build that strategic HR muscle? And the fact that we don't want to be remiss in the fact that work still needs to get done. So it's not like everyone can be a strategist. Somebody still has to make sure that people are getting onboarded and, and all those fun things. And so we're going to dive into that a little bit today.
Awesome. Well, I love this topic because last time we talked, you asked me to give some ideas that I had about some different things that people could do, HR could do to move into a more strategic role. And I left that conversation thinking, there's more meat on that bone, and I probably needed to say more about that. So this is sort of a mini-sode, if you will, for us to just talk about a few things that people can do, and then also where do you get these additional things to build
where
that
do you
HR
find
muscle?
that information? You're right, because there are so many resources that are out there, and some I really love and some I don't. Some, if you were like really into a lot and you like all the detail and the this and the that, it's kind of the way I feel about Smart Sheets versus Microsoft Project, right? Smart Sheets has revolutionized project management because it's so much simpler, but there are those people who are diehard project, Microsoft project. And I am not that person at all. I can barely do the Smart Sheet. I could never do the Microsoft project. And I feel that way about a lot of these HR tools and just kind of like things that are out there. So, and I'm definitely subscribed to the keep it simple, right? The whole KISS approach to it.
I align with that as well.
Yeah.
Marie Forleo, who is a great entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, always says, simplify to amplify.
Oh, I like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That resonates with me as well.
Absolutely.
But you're right. What works for you, what works for me, what works for each individual person is very different. So,
it's true.
Find what works for you.
I agree. It's the way I feel about self-help books, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for years, I hated self-help books because I thought, oh, come on, seriously. But then now I listen to them with the intention of taking little nuggets.
Yes.
And I may not even listen to the whole thing, right? I might just listen to pieces that are relevant. And I'm like, okay, how can I apply that to what I'm doing today? And now I get something more out of those than when I read them or listened to them with the intention like somehow that book was going to fix all my problems and solve my life.
Be revolutionary for your life.
Exactly.
It's going to turn your life around.
All was going to be better in that one book. It was solving all of my problems. So, it's just kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So there were 4 things that I sort of broke this down into to build your HR muscle.
Okay.
So the first one is to expand your knowledge. And I know that sounds very broad.
Right.
But some of the things that you can do is just staying current on some of the trends.
Yes.
So like AI, great example, right? That's something that is trending right now.
Absolutely.
And we can be resistant to learning new things, or we can be open-minded. And kind of what you were just saying too, is there 1 or 2 things that you can take out of an article on Forbes or, whatever you want to read. There's all kinds of stuff out there, right?
And that's a good point because you can Google.
That's right.
And the thing is too, is a lot of times we go right into the, like we think, we got to read just the HR magazines, but you mentioned Forbes. There are some really great articles in Forbes around these things. The Washington Post has some really good ones. The Atlantic has had some really good things. And so I think to your point is like, Google and look for those things. And sometimes you find some really obscure. And I started subscribing to one with trends in the UK. And it was, and I didn't realize it was in the UK at first until I started and I was like, wait a minute, this is not US.
But it's global.
But it's global. And I've learned a lot actually in reading that and understanding some of those things as well.
So I think it's a great point. There is one called, and it's sort of like a short newsletter that I get in my inbox. And it's called HR Brew.
Oh, I like that.
Like, have a cup of coffee and read, and it's just bite-sized little articles. At the end of the day, it's just figure out what works best for you.
I like
maybe
that.
Maybe pick 2 or 3 of them. But to your point, maybe change it up every so often.
Change it up. LinkedIn is another great one. Like I write, I have my own blog out on LinkedIn.
I read it. I love it.
Thank you. And that one is great because I do try to just make those short and sweet. And I subscribe to a lot of other people's newsletters on LinkedIn because they are short and sweet. And so you can find a lot of great information out there, or LinkedIn Learning has a lot of really cool things out there too. Even, it's nice because to your point, it's bite-sized. So I love that. So expand your knowledge. That's a great one. Keeping abreast of what's happening, because I do think that is part of the problem is we get stale, right? We're just kind of stuck in an old way of doing things.
I mean, and the world is changing all the time.
All the time.
If we as HR, so we're HR supporters at this point, right, in our careers, but as HR individuals or, people like us who are associated with HR professionals, we do have to keep our finger on the pulse.
Definitely got to. Yep, 100%. Well, what's next?
So the next thing is to gain business acumen. And I'm not just talking HR. As an example, and we talked about this in our last episode, I had a lot of questions as an HR business partner around manufacturing.
Absolutely.
Ask people questions. And what you'll find within your own organization, and even in other organizations in LinkedIn, I think is a great way to find those people. But ask them questions. People love doing informal interviews. They really do.
People like to talk about what they're doing. They may not like to talk about themselves, but they do like to talk about what they're doing. People have passion around that. So, no, I love that.
So then you get that more holistic view of business in general. You can kind of pull then the thread of how does this impact people? So it kind of brings it all back.
I like that. Well, and I was just talking with a colleague this week. We were at our leadership meeting actually here in Colorado, which was kind of fun to be able to do that. We were over at the Omni Interlaken Hotel. Never stayed there before because why? I live here, but it was nice. Just kind of a fun place to go to. But all of that to be said, we were kind of chatting, and I think a lot of the people that I work with have worked for the same company for the last, 20, 30 years.
Yes.
I'm not one of those people. I've had the unique opportunity to work in a multitude of industries I worked for Aramark, I worked for American Medical Response, they worked for McData, which then became Brocade, and worked for the city, all of this. But all of that, to your point on this, is that business acumen. Through all of that, I've learned a lot of different industries, right? And how they operate. And I've actually been able to apply that in my consulting, right? Because I think about, when I was a part of this, we kind of looked at it through that lens, or when I was here, we did those sorts of things. So I love what you're saying there, because that's another area we kind of get focused in our own little world.
Yes.
And we don't ask those questions and really kind of gain that business acumen. So I like that.
I was having a conversation with my sister last week who works for a nonprofit, CASA. I'll throw that out there. And we were talking about just the difference of nonprofits versus sort of what you consider corporate.
Oh my gosh, so true. And they operate as businesses. But there's a whole different world around what not-for-profits look like. And so, that's very true. It's very fascinating.
So you're learning something in all those conversations. So seek out those conversations within your organization and outside of your organization.
Yes.
That leads me to number 3, which is mentorship and coaching.
So important, right?
Yeah. And what I would say is I do believe that there are always opportunities for you to get mentored. I mean, I've been doing what I'm doing now for 17 years. There are still people that I connect with that I'll ask questions, of, or I'll say, like, Candy Martin, great example. She and I have connected. She has been doing her business much longer than I have. And we'll get on calls once a month. And we just talk about how is business going? How are we doing?
Let's give a shout out to her business. It's KTM Consulting, right?
KM3.
KM3. Sorry, Candy. When you listen to this, KM3 Consulting, and they do a lot around organizational development and change as well, right?
They do.
Well, and I love you're both 2 women-owned businesses, and so making that connection is so important, right? So, and to your point, you're willing to share with each other and learn more and that. And so I love the mentorship. And think about, I know you've been asked to be a mentor. I've had the privilege of being asked as well. And it means that I've learned more from them than I believe they've ever learned from me. I just have had so much fun. There's this one young man, his name is Michael Abebi, and he is just such a joy to, that I've been watching him grow. And, and he asked me if I would be a mentor. I've learned more from Michael than I guarantee I've ever taught Michael anything.
There's the gift, right?
Absolutely.
It's a reciprocal gift.
Yes.
I totally agree. And, in my business, I bring in interns.
I love that you do that.
Again, I feel the same way.
Absolutely.
I learn so much more. Lauren Bannis, I'll give her a shout out. Braden Hollis, I'll give him a shout out. Both from CSU.
Oh, I love
Go
it.
Rams.
Yes.
So, but they both brought in a different skill set into
probably a fresh
the
perspective
business.
too, right?
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that as well.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you a quick story too.
Yeah.
So when Braden got his first job after working with us at the Delta Principal, I got a knock on my door one Saturday.
Which is always, these days, we don't like to answer our doors, right? Because inevitably it's someone selling something to us, right?
Selling something. They did not pay attention to the do not solicit
That's right,
sign.
exactly.
But the doorbell rang, and I looked on my Ring camera, and it was Braden. Opened up the door, and he handed me flowers and a card.
Oh my gosh.
That he had written in, thanking me for the time with the Delta Principal, and that helped him as he got this job.
That's amazing.
Which was awesome.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And so fulfilling too. I think that's a big piece of it. And, and you think about it too, like mentorship and coaching, slightly different, right? Because mentorship is that opportunity to get free advice, really, because it's generally, you're just talking to somebody, you're learning a little bit more. Coaching, maybe a little more structured, and generally you're paying for a coach. And there's a different reason for why you would use a coach versus a mentor. But I love it because you learn so much. I know I always encourage my team members to find mentors throughout the organization. So find someone who's doing something different
than what you're doing.
Because it also gives you a different pulse on the business, because now you get a perspective that you may not have gotten if you weren't, kind of connected to that person.
And going back to strategic initiatives, you may come across something in finance and IT and operations where HR can play a strategic role, which then you can go and talk to your group and say, hey, I see a need.
And I think HR people don't seek that out enough. I mean, I think that HR provides the advice to employees. When they come and ask for it, and they'll say, oh, you should have a mentor, or maybe even you have a mentorship program in your company that HR has set up. And so maybe you get like a buddy when you get hired or something like that. But HR, I don't know how often they take advantage of that very thing as well, and that they seek out those mentors.
And they deserve that too.
Yes, they do. They deserve to know what's going on and have a different perspective, and are viewed slightly different too. So I think that's really good.
So many benefits to doing
for
that.
sure.
Are you looking for innovative and creative content options? Needing audio or video production or consulting? Or do you just have a great idea that you want to bring to life? LJM Productions specializes in making the big picture attainable, from commercials and social media content to just audio-visual cleanup and editing. We are here to make your next big project a reality. For more information or to receive a quote, email ljmproductionsco@gmail.com.
Well, what's next?
So then that leads me into take on strategic projects.
Love it.
Kind of segued right beautifully in there. But when there are opportunities across the organization, because you have more of that visibility, building that business acumen, seeking out mentors, looking at, the business in general and getting more of a holistic view, then that's where you can say, hey, I see a need.
Yes.
And then hopefully the managers within HR, the CHRO, can meet with the HR business partner, or say it's a CHRO. He or she can meet with the CEO of the company and say, here's some needs that we see.
I like it.
From an HR perspective. And I would like to offer my team, or as an HR business partner, I would like to raise my hand to be a part of that project.
I like
that strategic initiative. That just really, I do think that's a great way to build your strategic HR
muscle. So too. Well, and leaning back into, the story that you shared about your manufacturing background and reaching out to that manufacturing business owner, I'm betting that there were times when you got involved in things that weren't necessarily HR, the typical HR. And you probably learned a lot about the business and the people in the business that then you could help provide some guidance as well when you saw things going on. So you could say, hey, let me share a different perspective, perhaps.
Yeah. And, that did come full circle when you and I both worked at McData. And we did end up doing some outsourcing. We did end up having some layoffs.
We did,
But because I had a good understanding of the business, I was able to be a more effective liaison to the people who are being impacted.
Isn't that so important? Because generally when you're making those types of people decisions, like we're seeing it happening all over the country right now, right? There's lots of layoffs and things that are happening, acquisitions, mergers, all these things. And as much as that is about the business, a key component to that is about the people.
That's right.
But if HR doesn't understand both the business and the people, they're not effective or as effective in being able to provide guidance to those leaders to say, here's how I would approach it and here's why I would approach it that way.
Altogether.
And I think, then they can really be those strategic business partners in those situations. So that's great. I love it. 4 great things. So expand your knowledge, gain business acumen, mentorship and coaching, and take on strategic projects. I love it. Those are 4 great pieces of advice. So
awesome.
So tell me, where can you find these resources and information?
Yeah. So to find these resources and information, we've talked about going within your own organization. Yeah. We've talked about going outside of your organization, talking to your peers. So I know when you and I have worked together previously, and anyone I've worked with, we don't know the same things, right?
Right.
And so
yes.
if we are having conversations about business, about, areas that I want to grow, areas that you want to grow, there's always good conversation there. The other thing is joining organizations like SHRM,
I love that.
Of course.
Yes.
The ACMP, which is the Association of Change Management Professionals.
I love those guys.
I'm a member there, and they are global as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there's a local one called the Organizational Development Network.
I like that.
And that one is local to Denver.
Okay.
And it's just great networking opportunities. A lot of times free seminars, or they'll bring in speakers.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunities to learn. And one thing that I would say too is raise your hand and see if you can volunteer for those organizations as well. And then again, it just sort of expands your network. It expands your knowledge.
Yes.
You're going to learn different things about, whatever it is that you're interested in learning about.
I love it. There's another great group that's here in Denver called Women in Leadership. It's WIL. You can go. They have a LinkedIn page.
Awesome.
But if you go out and you join their page, they have different events that you can sign up.
I love that.
Again, another great networking opportunity. Great way to increase your business acumen, because you get to, these are all women in leadership. So they might be entrepreneurs.
Different
they might, exactly.
And,
so getting these different perspectives on that. So that's another great resource, and group that you can be a part of as well. And, I think you were kind of calling this out a little bit, is they don't all have to be HR groups.
That's right.
So SHRM is a great organization, but joining the ACMP, getting to understand a little bit more about change management, joining like a Women in Leadership.
Yes, I love
there's
that.
a lot of really good organizations out there. Toastmasters is another great one.
Still around.
It's still around after all these years.
After all these years.
Yes. I mean, I think back when I was a kid, I was part of the Mile High Optimist Club, and we did, you learned how to do speeches and things like that back then, which is so important for speaking. But Toastmasters, another really great opportunity to do things. Network helps you increase your business acumen, because you meet all of these amazing people as part of that as well.
I love that.
No, lots of different.
And finding really what speaks to you. So
because you're not going to be comfortable in all of these places. I completely agree. And you might be more comfortable in the national versus the regional, or maybe you like the local because it feels a little more personal to you. You can be maybe more involved and engaged.
That's right.
I like that too. And you got to find your people, right? Because not everybody is your people.
That's so true. Find the community that you feel connected with, right?
100%. Yeah, I totally agree.
I love that.
Yes. What else?
So attending conferences.
Love that.
I think UKG does a great job.
We do. We've got our
conferences.
annual Aspire conference, but aside from that, we also do these conferences that, like, they're virtual conferences, and we bring in industry experts. And so, UKG spends a lot of time putting information out there into the market so that we can help educate. So,
and UKG, Success Factors, SAP, all of them do HR related software. So anything you can do to get a leg up on the new technology.
Completely
again,
agree. Yes.
Going back to, you've got to stay informed, right?
World at Work, another great one. That's that. And again, more international, but also has that local great conference to attend as well. I think you're absolutely right. There's amazing resources out there, and they don't all cost. So I think that's the other piece, right? We don't all have an unlimited budget to be able to be a part of these things. And if you look for them, there are a lot of different, free resources that are available to you that can help you in your journey along the way. But when you just recently shared one with me too, McLean & Company, I'd not heard of them before. And
they've got some
really
stuff.
Good stuff out there.
They do indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I love it. What else are you thinking?
So, and I love the free stuff too. So I'm with you. So podcasts.
Podcasts are awesome.
And there's so many out there.
Yeah.
So what I would say on those is talk to other people who are listening to like, what do you listen to and why?
I think it's great.
What's the personality of the podcast?
Yeah.
How long are they? What value are you getting from it?
Absolutely.
So podcasts are great. Reading or Audible, which I'm an Audible fan. So I go for a walk with the dogs. Audible's going in my ears.
Absolutely. Great way to be able to just get some information, multitask. If you're not a sit down and read a book kind of person, it's great. And you can stop and start multiple times and it's great.
Little things that are
absolutely.
meaningful.
Yep. I love that.
And then of course TED Talks. I am
TED Talks
a
are
big
great.
fan of TED Talks.
Me too. I've learned a lot in those short little 20-minute, 25-minute type of TED Talks things. And they've got some amazing people who come on there. And because of the structure on them, they do like jam a lot of information in a short period of time. But you walk away from that with some really good nuggets. So I'm with you. I love that. Well, and of course, a shameless plug for our podcast.
So
make sure, you got to make sure you're listening to our podcast and subscribing and
the
sharing.
HR podcast.
Yes, I love it.
Absolutely. So we've talked about LinkedIn a lot, but I do think LinkedIn, of all sort of the social networks, if you're looking business to business, or I just feel like LinkedIn really is like the top tier when it comes to...
I agree with you. I've been a member of LinkedIn probably from the beginning, for a long time. And I think that, in that one, there is some advantage in paying a little extra to get the premium membership. Yeah. There are some benefits to doing that. And now with their new LinkedIn Learning that they've added on there is great. And if you're in sales or human resources, LinkedIn's a great tool for you as well in making connections. But to your point, it is a professional platform.
That's right.
And again, another one of those where I've learned a ton and I've made some amazing connections.
I agree.
You and I reconnected back through LinkedIn. Yeah, it was a great way for us to be able to touch back with one another, kind of follow and see what each other were up to.
Yeah,
so,
I agree. And and it's an expectation on LinkedIn, right? That you're going to reach out and connect with other people.
Absolutely. It's not weird. It's not an uncomfortable thing. Absolutely. And if you don't want to connect, you just don't accept the connection.
That's right.
It's not like it has to be weird. It's, and you can follow different people out there too. So even if you're not connected to everyone, but you kind of want to keep track, see what they're doing, follow businesses. You can go on and follow businesses as well. And it's kind of nice because, again, another place where I learn a lot of industry information is out there on LinkedIn. So, great platform for sure.
And then finally, again, I would be remiss if I didn't say this, but continuing education.
Yeah.
So advanced degrees.
Absolutely.
MBA programs, certifications. I am such a big proponent of certifications.
I love certifications.
Because you do learn a lot in a shorter period of time. And I do believe that those certifications on your LinkedIn account, on your resume, do speak volumes.
They do. I think sometimes even more so. And especially right now, there's a big movement. What are they calling it? Tearing the paper ceiling, which is around skills-based hiring, right? And there's an organization, a not-for-profit called Opportunity at Work, and they're doing some amazing, just making amazing strides around this and educating. But a big piece of that is around these certifications because, they are, and sometimes advanced degrees aren't as meaningful as some of the certifications out there as well.
They're very targeted.
Yes. If you want to learn something quick, like there's a ton out there in AI right now. So great way to get certified. You could do Google certification. We just did a whole big thing with Google that for women and encouraging women to get their certification in the cloud. And, it was just a great opportunity and just, again, another learning opportunity. So,
I love that.
Yeah, no, it is really good. So Cyndi, you have given some great advice today. I love all of the different ideas. So, just kind of recapping some of those, we're expanding our knowledge, we're gaining business acumen, we're seeking out mentorship and coaching, we're taking on strategic projects. We're looking into our organization. We're looking outside of our organization, taking advantage of our peers, listening to podcasts like the HR podcast, our podcast.
Yes.
LinkedIn, a great, resource as well, continuing education. But you also worked on something as well, something simple. So kind of what we were talking about, that subscribing to the KISS model. And so talk a little bit about these workshops or these worksheets that you just created.
Yeah, thank you. So I feel like when I listen to a podcast or I listen to a book or whatever it happens to be, back to what we were saying, I typically take away like 1 or 2 golden nuggets.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is really valuable is to be able to have a conversation about, I'm an HR business partner or I'm a CHRO. How do I take some of the low-hanging fruit, some of the things that I have to do from an HR perspective, and not to say that they're the terrible things, they're the tasks and things, but the payrolls, the benefits,
absolutely the things that need to be done.
Happen,
it's foundation. It's like building a house, right? You can't just put up the walls and the roof. You have to have a foundation. So
that's right. Yeah. But how do I move then more into a strategic? Get to offset some of that with strategic type projects and things of that nature. So I put together, and this was taken from a webinar from McLean & Company. So I have to give them credit.
Yeah, we'll give them a shout out for sure.
So they talked about on a webinar that was just this past week, bottom line tasks. Those are, to your point, the foundational things, right? So it's risk mitigation, it's I-9s, it's background checks, it's payroll benefits, et cetera. And then top-line initiatives, which are more the strategic initiatives. So we've got a worksheet that we're going to offer to people. It's a free worksheet, and hopefully it will help with those conversations. But it's essentially for the bottom-line tasks. What tasks are you responsible for? Are they manual or are they automated?
Love that.
What's the time commitment?
Oh, yeah.
Can it be automated, outsourced, or made more efficient?
Love it.
And what are the next steps? So that's part of the worksheet.
Yeah, very simple.
Right? The next part of the worksheet is those top-line initiatives. So what strategic initiatives would you like to get involved with after you've had all these conversations and done all this stuff? What skills do you have? What skills do you need? How can you get those skills? And what are the next steps?
I love it. So it's almost like creating a little development plan, but very simplified, right? Just kind of bringing it down to the brass tactics. So I love it. No,
so
this
to
is
get
fantastic.
this, all people have to do is just email us.
And what's that email address?
herresourcespodcast@gmail.com.
Love it. I love it. No, that'll be great. And we'll continue to provide resources, links, as we gather more and more of our own information that we are sharing with you, we'll provide that out to you as well. So you can go check out these resources yourself and have access to them. So
I can't wait to hear how hopefully this is helpful for people.
I hope so too. And please do provide us feedback. We are very interested in hearing from all of you out there. What's working, what's not working, and what are some of the things you're doing? We'd love to highlight some of the amazing things that we know our friends and colleagues are doing out there in the industry today. So
thanks so much, Linda.
Thank you.
This
it was
is always fun.
See you. It's always fun. I always enjoy talking. I could talk about this stuff all day, every day. So well, we hope everybody has a fantastic day, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the HR Her Resources podcast. We're so happy to have you with us on this journey. Music and production by Logan Misegadis of LJM Productions. We'd also like to thank our intern, Lauren Banas, for creating our logo and supporting our social media postings. If you'd like to connect with Logan or Lauren, you can find their information in the show notes. If you found value in our discussion and think someone else might as well, please follow and subscribe to our LinkedIn and share with a friend. Until our next episode, please take care and continue to support one another.